A very good morning, children. I welcome you all for today's learning session. Before going into today's session, I'll give you a quick revision from previous class and we'll see new terms, that is definition of compounds and characteristics. In the last class, we learned about names and symbols of elements and we studied about special features of the representation of elements and we came to know about their Latin names and German names. Today, we are going to see what is the definition of compounds and its characteristics. Many elements have the tendency to combine with each other and form compounds. Many elements I mean here is the different elements which is present in the periodic table. A compound is a pure substance formed by the chemical combination of two or more elements in a definite proportion by mass. That is, a compound is a pure substance formed by the chemical combination of two or more elements. That is, here we can see the water molecule, where the water molecule is formed by chemical combination of two or more elements. That is, the elements which is present in the water molecule is hydrogen and oxygen. Now we are going to see the characteristics of a compound. A compound is made up of two or more elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen. A compound is a pure substance. How come they are called as pure substance? A compound always contains the same elements combined together in a fixed ratio. The compound can be water, carbon dioxide, sodium chloride, copper sulfate, etc. They always combine in a same elements together in a fixed ratio. For example, the composition of water always remains the same. It always contains hydrogen and oxygen in the ratio of 2:1. That is 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. The properties of a compound are different from the properties of its constituent elements. That means the properties of water are different from the properties of hydrogen and oxygen. Water is used to extinguish fire, while oxygen supports fire and hydrogen burns itself. The molecules of a compound can be broken down into their elements by a chemical method only. For example, a molecule of water can be broken down into hydrogen and oxygen by a process of electrolysis, that is, passing an electric current through water. In a compound, molecule is the smallest particle which shows all the properties of that compound. When a compound is formed, energy is either absorbed or released during the chemical reaction. When hydrogen and oxygen atoms combine to form water, energy is released in the form of heat and light. A compound can be solid, liquid and gas. For example, sodium chloride is in the form of solid, water is liquid, carbon dioxide is gas. Now we are going to see some of the examples of compounds and its constituent elements present in it. Sodium chloride contains sodium and chlorine. Water compound contains hydrogen and oxygen. Copper sulfate contains copper, sulfur and oxygen. Finally, carbon dioxide contains carbon and oxygen as their constituent elements. So these are all the examples of compounds and these are all their constituent elements which is present in the compound. Now we are going to see the differences between element and compound. An element is made up of only one kind of substance. For example, element hydrogen, oxygen or nitrogen or the elements which is present in the periodic table are made up of only one kind of substance. Whereas a compound contains two or more elements combined together in a fixed ratio. For this, we studied about water molecule, where the water is made up of two or more elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen, which is combined together in a fixed ratio. An element cannot be broken down into simpler substance by chemical methods, whereas a compound can be broken down into constant elements by chemical methods. That is, again, water is taken as an example, where the water can be broken down into its constant elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen, by chemical methods, that is by electrolysis. An element has its own set of properties. The properties of a compound differ from those of its constant elements. An element is represented using a symbol, that is, we know already, carbon, magnesium, silver, all these are represented using a symbol, that is, for carbon it is C, for magnesium it is Mg, and for silver it is Ag. Whereas a compound is represented using a formula, that is, water. It is a compound where it is represented using a formula, that is H2O. Thank you, children. I'll meet you in the next video with a new topic. Take care.